Marathon Mania, where we'll be discussing all things marathon related, including tips on training, fueling, hydrating, what to wear, and what to expect. I'm your moderator, Jenna. I'm from Sweat Guru, where we take the work out of working out. We help people find fitness they love and keep their whole fitness profile in one place. We also help fitness professionals spend more time helping people get fit and less time behind the desk. We have an amazing panel today. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, provide your company, what you do, and your Twitter handle, and we will start with Jamie.
Hi everybody, I'm Jamie from Fit Approach. You can find me at JamieWalker19 or at Fit Approach on Twitter. I am an ultra marathoner and yogi, and I'm really excited to talk to you all today about running. Sweat Pink.
And why don't we go to John and Taylor from KonaKase.
Hey everyone, we're John and Taylor from KonaKase. Twitter handles at KonaKase. We have a monthly subscription e-commerce business. You can see our box right here where we deliver healthy snacks for your active lifestyle right to your doorstep for $15.
And next,
resident triathlete. He just did a triathlon, so he's got a lot of up-to-date information on what it takes to fuel a triathlon.
Cool, thanks guys. Next we have Allie from Zola.
Hey everyone, I'm Allie. I'm with Zola Coconut Water, and I'm here today to talk about hydrating and rehydrating and the importance of all of that when you're working out and running a marathon. You can find us on Twitter at DrinkZola.
And we now have Heather from Eat Right.
Hi, my name is Heather Mangieri. I'm a spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, found at eatright.org. I also am a sports dietitian located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with Nutrition Checkup as my business. And my Twitter handle is at Nutrition Check. So I work with athletes from casual exercisers all the way up to Olympic athletes and help them to create fuel and hydrating plans so that they make it through their event successfully and better than they were the last time. So that's it.
Wonderful. And Heather, while we're on you, maybe we should talk about what types of food a runner should avoid before a race?
Sure. So, I mean, generally speaking, a lot of times it's important to kind of figure out what people have been doing. But generally speaking, we recommend to really watch the amount of fat and fiber that you take in, because both of those nutrients can slow digestion. So the goal with the pre-hydrate or the pre-fueling meal or snack is to be able to use those calories. And so we generally recommend simple carbohydrates, avoiding fat and fiber.
And we often hear that pasta is a good pre-race meal. Is that necessarily true, or is there something else you might recommend?
Sure, pasta is kind of the go-to. We always hear about pasta parties, and a lot of times I think that that's because it's inexpensive. So you can feed a whole team, for example, of pasta, and it doesn't cost that much money. But it's a carbohydrate, and the carbohydrate breaks down to sugar, and that's the fuel you're going to use to fuel that activity. It's what we store in our muscles as glycogen. But I also I recommend other items as well. One of my favorites is like a stir-fry vegetable with rice. You keep the protein relatively lean, but a moderate amount. Keep the fat low. Even chicken or a turkey burger with a sweet potato and some vegetables on the side works well. Keeping it balanced, but again, that pre-workout meal relatively low fat too.
That sounds delicious. Can we talk a little bit about what happens to your body during a marathon and how to stay hydrated before, during, and after?
Sure. So, I mean, the whole purpose of fueling around the event is to make sure that there's enough carbohydrate available to fuel that workout, and body fat too you're going to be using. So day-to-day nutrition is critical for making sure that you can fuel properly for a marathon. But we oftentimes focus on before, during, and after because we want to make sure that it's available. So before, the idea with that is really to top off those muscle glycogen stores, and that's providing, again, that simple carbohydrate. Could be fruit, it could be half a sandwich. It could be toast with a little bit of peanut butter. And there's a variety of foods. Again, I'm speaking as a sports dietitian, so I'm talking about foods, but there's also some engineered products that are out there that that work good for that as well. It's a personal preference. A lot of times I have clients that prefer only liquids, again, because a lot of times before a marathon or an ultra marathon, people are very nervous, and so they really do better with keeping it into a liquid like a sports drink. And then, of course, as you go through the marathon or the event, you want to make sure that you're continually supplying some sort of carbohydrate, fluid, and electrolyte source. So that's where these engineered sports drinks come in, and a lot of the products like the goos and the gels and the chews and the blocks. But as a sports dietitian, I'm going to also suggest, hey, whenever you get tired of all that sweet stuff, real food objects or items also work really well. So, even taking a baked potato and slicing it up and putting some salt on it and having that, and then stopping at those fluid stations to get to make sure that you keep that hydration going. Most of the time, the biggest thing problem I see with marathoners is that they wait too long to stop at those stops and rehydrate or keep that that fuel source coming in. You don't want to wait until you feel like you need it. You want to make sure that you're stopping at regular times and that you practice that fueling. And then, of course, recovery after is really important to really start that rehydrating process and to start recovery nutrition so that you refeed those muscles and begin a little bit of protein to make sure that we start that recovery process.
Thank you. Wow. Also, what would you recommend for runners with GI issues?
Well, I mean, GI issues can range anywhere from bloating to gas to chronic diarrhea while you're doing your run. So there's a variety of issues that we have when it comes to GI. So first of all, we have to identify what it is, and it's going to be different for each case. But if I have a new client that comes, or if somebody's experiencing GI issues, I would recommend usually keeping a food journal for and really kind of keeping track of what you consume, what fluid you consume, and then we can try to identify trends from that. GI issues can come. Some people experience GI issues from too much caffeine. Other people, it's nerves. It's not really a fueling issue or a hydration issue. It's more, I'm nervous, and so we have some stress relief things that we have to work through. But it can come for a variety of reasons.
Wonderful.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot of people say that they have issues with using gels versus the shot blocks, for example.
Yep.
Or candy or something like that while they're on a long run. If they can't use those artificial things, is there something else besides a baked potato or something like that you would recommend?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I mean, I have some runners that are eating pretzels while they're out there. So it's really it's a personal preference that's practiced. It's not something that you just try the day you go out, but it's really, there's these formulated products that are formulated for a reason. They provide this combination of glucose and fructose, which is what's you're using to fuel. So we can get that through food as well. So it might be raisins, or pineapple is a really popular one that I use. But you don't want to use all fruit, because if you use all fruit, then you're getting all fructose. And you want to make sure that there's that combination carbohydrate coming in, because that way we maximize the amount of carbohydrate we can absorb during at one time. GI issues can also come from too much fructose, because we have a limited amount of fructose that we can absorb at one time. So if I have somebody with GI issues, that's one of the first things that I'll ask them is, okay, how much fruit are you consuming? Are you taking in fruit juice? Because that can be a problem. But a combination of any type of carbohydrate, crackers, pretzels. Some people are like, there's no way I would eat a solid like that when I'm out running an event, but other people do great. I mean, I've had ultra marathoners eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they do really well with that. So it just depends on the person, but you have to practice.
Great, thank you.
And are there certain foods that would cause cramping, and how can a runner avoid cramping?
Yeah, so cramping, again, it could be a fueling issue. It's not always a fueling issue, so you have to, again, kind of look at patterns and see what happens. a huge percentage of the time, if somebody's experienced cramps, it comes because they're having a sodium issue. Okay, a lot of athletes think of potassium, when it comes to cramping, but usually it's a sodium issue. And so it's important to make sure that whatever the pre-event meal is or snack, what you're using to fuel your event during and then actually after is a good source of sodium. Because if you've seen a runner and they get the white, the sodium's coming out and it gets built up on their skin, then they might be a really salty sweater. And if that's the case, then they need to focus more on sodium. So even for some, I have athletes that don't like the sweetness during the event, so they choose to have water at the water stations. That's fine as long as the foods that are being consumed are salty foods. So that is one of the most important things probably for cramping that I see.
Is there a certain amount of extra sodium that you should be consuming before a race then to offset that?
It varies. There's no specific number. I mean, some people, again, if you're a salty sweater and that's something that you want to evaluate, sometimes I'll do sweat rate calculations, and we'll kind of look at that, like how much fluid am I using or am I losing, I'm sorry. But if usually athletes will know I'm a salty sweater and I need extra sodium, and they can tell either because it's built up extra on their skin, you can taste it. And you can see whenever you're out running these events that some athletes are actually losing more than others. So if you are a salty sweater, you need more. If you're not a salty sweater, you might need a little bit less. But these sports drinks and products that are formulated with electrolytes are formulated that way for a reason, because they have enough sodium in them, or they have an amount of sodium in them that is kind of calculated out to be an appropriate amount. But everybody's going to need a little bit more. You might need somebody that might need 3 gels, somebody might need 6. We're all different, and most of even the carbohydrate and the fluid we calculate based on our kilograms, so everybody's a little different.
Wonderful. And that brings us to our last question, which kind of ties in, which is, what's the best sports hydration or recovery drink?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say there's any one best. Again, I have seen clients that don't like sports drinks. So if you don't like the sweet taste, then a homemade sports drink is fine. I think the key is to have all of the things in it that need to be in it, and that is, there's a hydration source, there is an electrolyte source, so there's enough sodium in it, there's potassium as well, and that there's some sort of carbohydrate in it, because carbohydrate is our fuel, sodium is that primary electrolyte that we're losing, and of course we're losing a lot of fluid. So even like, I know we have coconut water, we're talking about that today. If you love coconut water, that's great, but some athletes are going to need to add sodium to that mix in order to get that sodium bumped up to an amount that's appropriate. Same thing with rehydrating. Drink what you like, but make sure that you're mixing it with appropriate foods that provide the things that maybe that drink doesn't have.
Cool. Thank you so much, Heather. Next, we're going to go to John and Taylor from KonaKase. So guys, what would someone find typically when they open a KonaKase?
Yeah, so we really try to rotate our product categorization monthly. So it's everything from goos and gels to granola. We've included gluten-free lentil chips in the past. So we're really trying to make it a healthy snack box for your healthy lifestyle. So, or your active lifestyle, rather. So each month we put a lot of focus on making sure that we have something completely different than the assortment from the previous month.
We try to get a good mix of dietary specialty things. So certain things are gluten-free or vegan. We try to get a product mix on product type, so bars, gels, granola. And we also try to get a good variety of brands. So brands you've heard of, like Power Bar, Cliff Bar, but then brands you've never heard of. A 2-person company in Bend, Oregon that's making a bar out of their kitchen. So we try to get people products they've had and they know they like, but then we also try to introduce them to new brands.
Cool. So what are the different types of electrolytes that a runner can choose from when preparing for a race? Between gels, shot blocks, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each?
Well, the ones we've personally worked with, and and have both tried in our training for triathlons and marathons. One is Goo Brew, another up-and-coming company called Osmo Nutrition, which is going to be included in the June case, and they're a sponsor for the Cannondale Pro Cycling Team. We tend to err more on the side of if you're trying to consume electrolytes, it's easier to get more electrolytes through a lot of the tablet forms as opposed to some of the consumable forms like Cliff Blocks, but that's certainly a benefit of consuming something like Cliff Blocks.
Yeah, and one really interesting product company that we've partnered with is a San Francisco-based company called Drip Drop. I think their website's Drip Drop ORS. And they have this ORS being oral rehydration system, and they actually have an application for people that are doing things like ultra marathons, but also they're taking their product to like sub-Saharan Africa, where malnutrition and lack of hydration is like a very serious issue for just sustaining life at the most basic level. And that's a product that I know I've taken when exercising and even when like flying on a red eye. So that's kind of another interesting one that we've partnered with. It's like an up-and-coming brand with kind of multi-use case.
There I go. Sorry, I got stuck on mute. So what have you guys found to be successful in terms of fueling for endurance races before, during, and after? Because one of you is a triathlete, right?
Yeah, John's done a few triathlons, and I think maybe a marathon. I've done a few marathons. I know that for the thing that I always focused on when doing the few marathons that I've done was finding things that tasted really good. I know that a common symptom of doing long, multi-hour events is that foods and drinks can often taste sour on certain people's palate, and so finding a way that's that tastes good but also cooperates with your system is a real priority, and being able to get calories in a way that just feels good for you. One kind of a buddy of mine who did an Ironman triathlon gave me the tip that he said a lot of people in that community use, which is toward the end of the event to drink flat Diet Coke. And I thought that was kind of an interesting anecdote, and actually tried it and found that the caffeine on like mile 22 or 23 was actually really, really effective in powering me through. I know that's not necessarily fuel in like a conventional sense, but something that worked really well, and because it was flat as opposed to still being carbonated, it was really easy on my stomach. So I think everyone kind of finds their own, something that works really well with them specifically.
Very quickly, my race day kind of routine is to eat granola 2 hours before the race starts, eat a banana about 30 minutes before the race starts, and then throughout the course of the event, in the recent half Ironman that I did, I actually brought a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it was a much better alternative than to eating bars and gels over the course of 5.5 hours, which can get really tiresome and you don't want to eat. And so I'll try to have a gel every hour or so, and then to drink more than I really want to. A great piece of advice I got once was, if you feel good during a race, you should eat and you should drink, and if you feel bad, you should slow down. It's very basic advice, but something I adhere to pretty closely. So, when you're halfway through the race and you're in that, you're in a few miles of feeling really good, that's a really good time to eat, because when you start to feel bad, you're definitely not going to eat, and then from there on out, your body's just going to be a slow fade into fatigue and not enough in your body.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. That's such great advice, and I see that a lot in counseling is that we tend to say, oh, I feel good, I don't need anything, or I feel so good, I don't need to stop at this water station or this hydration station. But those are the times to really make sure that you stop, because once you feel bad, psychologically you start to fall apart, and physically and mentally it can become a nightmare, and it's hard to get back to that, especially in those longer events. And in some of the long ultras, I know we have somebody here talking about the ultras that they've done. They also serve, we tend to say stay away from high-fat foods before, but when you are running and you're out there for hours and hours and hours, it's like you're missing meals. You're not just feeling to get by. You're really missing full meals. You don't want to get hungry. So there are definitely options out there that do have fat in them. So I don't want people to feel like to be afraid to consume that, because at that point you really do start to need them.
Cool. So, gentlemen, what should athletes expect to find in this June KonaKase?
We have some awesome stuff coming up in the June KonaKase.
Yeah. So it's a good, as always, it's a good mix. We have the Osmo Nutrition, which I mentioned, which is a hydration drink mix. We have 18 Rabbits, which I know for the Fit Approach folks in San Francisco, I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. It's a San Francisco-based company. Kind Bar, a great partner of ours.
One Bar, I think, is another Bay Area-based company.
One Bar is a super small brand. It's going to be it's a single serving of fruit in the form of a bar, and the flavor is mango. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't get enough mango. So we're gonna be eating those all month long and loving it. And then we've got a couple gel products and
Half Pops.
Half Pops, which is a salty half-popped popcorn snack. Really great product. And then Dr. Wilbar, which is another example of a tiny brand that is trying to gain national exposure. They're based out of the Portland, Oregon area, started by a chiropractor who is a recreational cyclist and races recreationally and was just tired of the products that were out there. So he started making his own thing in a kitchen. Now he's got a team of 3 people. So it's really fun to work with brands like that. But we think it's a pretty solid box. We always try to get a good complement of products and round it out. And chances are, you're not going to necessarily love everything you get, but you're going to find a lot of new brands that you might like and might want to try other flavors of. And we know you all have friends that will very happily take the products you don't like off your hands, so you can be generous with the ones you don't love.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Can I say one more thing? We just had one more. We have a cool thing coming up in DC. At the end of the month, we're partnering up with Kind Bar and Honest Tea, and we're going to be doing Honest Acts of Kindness, which is where people in the DC area are going to be able to nominate friends of theirs in the DC area to receive a hand-delivered KonaKase stocked full of coupons for Kind Bar, Honest Tea, and also Capital Bike Share. It's a really cool way to recognize someone in your community who is being really generous with their time towards community service projects or through a nonprofit, or any form of generosity. And so that'll be a pretty exciting partnership we have coming up, and we'll be posting more about that.
Thanks, guys. I was going to say you have me now wanting PB&Js and mango. We're going to head over now to Allie from Zola. Allie, what sets Zola apart from other coconut waters, and why is it so great for athletes?
Great question. So Zola coconut water, it comes straight from Thailand from young green coconuts. I'm actually drinking one here right now. And so what sets it apart really from other brands on the market is the fact that it doesn't come from concentrate, and also includes 5 essential electrolytes that the body needs, especially when running a marathon or just simply working out. So to kind of speak to Heather's point, if you wanted to jump in and add anything, we do have sodium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, and calcium within our coconut water, and it actually has the amount of potassium as 1 whole banana. So that's really helpful if you are, not fueling with sodium foods, but you're maybe drinking a coconut water. That can replenish your electrolytes really well if you're running a marathon.
I think, just to jump in, it certainly, I think it's a great source of potassium, and it is it has a balance of it includes all of the electrolytes. I just will caution that, the sodium content in coconut water is oftentimes not high enough to make it through, a marathon. So you want to be either, adding some sort of additional sodium to coconut water, or making sure that the foods that you choose have added sodium in them. Definitely. But a lot of people like the taste of coconut water, and it's not as sweet, so it can be a good addition.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
If I can jump in for a second, I found that I like drinking coconut water maybe like an hour or so after I feel that I'm starting to kind of recover, and I have like taken enough sodium in because it's like a really good way to just rehydrate, and kind of gives you something other than water to do that. So I think that, yeah, definitely like you need to get the sodium levels up first, but then the coconut water like for the following hours to like rehydrate throughout the day is really, really a good source. I don't know if that's true or it's just kind of what I felt like myself. So.
And so, how does coconut water help a runner stay hydrated, and how much should the runner be drinking?
That's a good question. So it does help. The electrolytes really do help you stay hydrated because they're replenishing all those that you burn while you're actually running or working out. So that's definitely helps to sustain your endurance when you're running long distances. And I would say, one can as needed. Like, this is a really good amount for me. It's kind of a one serving type deal, but I wouldn't overdo it on the potassium or anything like that. So I would say 1 can is probably sufficient if you're just going to have a coconut water here and there while you're sustaining also with water.
And what are the benefits of coconut water versus just regular water?
Well, like I said, those electrolytes are definitely needed when you're working out, when you're running a marathon, even if you're just doing yoga in your apartment. Water is obviously delicious and hydrating too, but coconut water tastes great. It makes your body feel really good, and it's a really nice source of natural energy. So instead of, maybe caffeine, it's a really good way to stay energized throughout your day, the natural way.
And where could athletes find Zola?
So we're sold on the West Coast. We're sold in Safeway, Lucky, and then in more natural products stores like Molly Stone's, Whole Foods, and Sprouts. We're also on Amazon.com. And if you're on the East Coast, we're in ShopRite and Stop and Shop and ShopRite.
Cool. Thank you so much, Allie. Next we have Jamie, our yogi / ultra marathoner. And Jamie, we've received questions from Sweat Pink ambassadors. How long does it take you to recover from finishing your first 26.2? And would you recommend / not recommend that to a first-time marathoner?
I think for recovery time, I really think it's, everybody sort of has like their nutrition and their preferences. I think everybody sort of has their own recovery, and times really differ. I think from your first one, it can take up to 1 to 2 weeks. I know that it's rough on your body and your joints especially, and so a lot of people will go through a week or 2 weeks where they're still feeling like they're recovering, and a lot of that has to do with how you eat and drink after the fact, and also just, being nice to yourself in that next week, and how you sort of recover your muscles as well. Did I miss part of the question, Jenna?
And during your ultra marathons, how do you stay motivated? Is there a mantra you have? Because it's really long.
Yeah, no, they're really long. I go through portions of them where it's really tough to stay motivated, and sometimes I start talking to myself. So I have a lot of mantras, but a lot of times I'm just literally I talk to myself, or sometimes I talk to the plants. Really, and a lot of times it's just like forward progress, just keep moving is something I always say, because when you're out there that long, sometimes that's all you can hope for is forward progress. It's like you're hoping you're not sitting down or laying down in the middle of the trail, which I've done on many occasions, but that's what I try to say. I just keep telling myself, even if it's slow, it's forward progress, so just keep moving. And that's kind of the mantra that I use, but there's a lot of things that I probably say to myself that I wouldn't ever want to repeat necessarily.
And what's your favorite part of an ultra marathon, and what would drive you to even run a 100-mile race?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it, the drive is, a lot of it just comes from having experience and having done them before, and it's like the feeling when you know how it feels when you've done it. Sometimes during, you're asking yourself, why do I put myself through this, and why am I doing this again? But then you sort of remember because there's this like amazing high, and I think it really comes, after the fact, that you get, and it's an achievement, and it's something where you learn a lot about yourself out there, your character and also your physical strength. And I think also, there's just something really awesome about it. No matter what the course is, I always discover something like amazing. On this last race I did, I discovered that cows' eyes are very green and they glow in the dark. And I don't think I would have ever known that before. Because while it was a little bit spooky, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm out in the middle of the night, like, it's pitch black. If I turn off my headlamp, the only thing I can see are the stars, the moon, and the cows with their eyes only. And it was just like spooky little eyes looking at me. But, now I know cows have green eyes and they glow in the dark. Learnings.
Okay, sorry. So can you walk us through how you prepare for an ultra marathon?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of preparation, I just try and put some miles in on the trails. I sign up for races beforehand to train for other races. So I always say like, oh, this was just a training race or something like that. So for the 100-miler that I didn't complete, that I did 80 miles of a couple weeks ago, I did a lot of 50Ks leading up to that, and then just, would try to do a 50K on like a Saturday and then put in like another 8 miles the next day. So just kind of loading up the miles in one go. And if you're like doing the math and you're like a 50K, that's only 31 miles, and like 8 miles the next day, that doesn't, get even close to 100. I always say it doesn't matter. If you have a lot of elevation in your, 50K, you're going at a speed that you're not going to go for your 100. I don't stress about like the actual number of miles. I just look at it, is it all like it's part of the intensity? It's like the whole package in a way. And in terms of the nutrition, I'm still figuring that out, to be honest. I sometimes think I have that figured out, and then I go out for, my latest 100-miler attempt, and I realized that my nutrition isn't under control at all. And it requires a lot of training. So a lot of this has been great because I've been listening to a lot of the things that, Heather and Zola and KonaKase were saying about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take some of these tips out of my next race. And it's all about practicing. So a lot of the prep goes into exactly what Heather was saying. You have to practice eating those foods, which I try to do. But I guess I haven't been very effective at it because I am the person who gets the GI issues that cause projectile vomit in the middle of a race. And I mean, it's happened to me on both attempts at 100-milers multiple times. So clearly something is not right for me.
And so I know for example, for the 100-miler, you had a crew. What do you look for in a crew, and do you need to have one for an ultra marathon?
I prefer to have one. I don't necessarily need one for all distances. For 100, I definitely need one. I think like it's necessary. Otherwise, I would be completely insane. I look for just like anybody who wants to come out and support me. So Becky was out at my last one, and Elise, my cousin / co-founder, and she comes out to she's been out to both of my 100s and a few of my races. And I just look for people that are gonna like smile at me when I come in, or they're gonna, want to drive point to point if that's what it takes. It's just anybody that will make you feel happy. Because that's, for me, it's a lot about the mental sanity of like seeing a friendly face or having someone smile or say something encouraging to you. Because when you're hitting those low points, we were talking about how like, eat early, eat often was what I was hearing from a lot of people, which I struggle with. It's also like the same thing. It's like you want to see those smiles even when you're like at your highest point. You want people to celebrate with you. And then when you're at your lowest point, you want them to be able to say like, hey, you've got this. You're doing so good. Because sometimes when you're really low, you can like, it can be one of the worst things in the world, like the feeling that you get. And having someone smile at you is like, I don't know, it's gold. It's like amazing while you're out there.
So you're a certified yoga instructor. How do you incorporate yoga with running, and why is it important for runners?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that yoga has helped my running and vice versa. I think that yoga trains you, well, first of all, it trains you to be a lot more at peace and sort of centered. And I take a lot of that out onto the trails. There's times when, I'm starting to get cramps, or I'm starting to have this like idea in my head, like I'm gonna die out here. And you know, I have to stop and think to myself, like, no, okay, actually, you're not gonna die. You're fine. You're just kind of hot and sweaty, and the sun is really like beating down on you right now. And I'll a lot of times practice my yogi breathing, and I like take deep breaths, and I try to like inhale and exhale and remind myself like that's all that it takes. And as silly as that sounds, it's so effective. It not only will cool your body down, but it just gives you like a new perspective, and it kind of shuts down the thoughts of like I'm gonna die in this next instant. And then the other things are the balance is so important, especially for trail running. I find that having really good balance and being able to get over different terrain and everything else, the yoga has really helped me a lot. I feel more agile and able to go over the creeks and the rocks and everything else that I encounter. And then the other way around, I feel like through all my running, my yoga has only gotten better because I've become a lot stronger on both fronts. And I haven't even talked about muscles, but women tend to be very quad dominant. So a lot of us, we probably are able to squat for days, but we tend not to develop very much strength in our glutes and our hams unless we really think about it and do it. And the nice thing about yoga is there are a lot of yoga poses that concentrate on those areas that are also really great for running. So I think they go hand in hand.
And is there any stretches or yoga poses you recommend before or after a race?
Any ones you can get into afterwards. I'm a big fan of pigeon pose. I tend to, most runners, I think, I tend to have really tight hips, and like sometimes my legs just don't want to do things. But before a race, I love to get into pigeon pose and sort of sit and cry through it for a good 8 minutes. And then afterwards, honestly, I sort of feel like it's anything you can actually get into is great. Sometimes I just put the soles of my feet together and like let my my knees flop to the sides, and that feels really good. And other times I'll just like stick my legs up a wall, and that's actually just called legs up a wall, and that's nice. It's gentle. You can do that at any time. Sometimes afterwards, I'm lucky to be moving, so I just kind of take what I can. And again, I think whatever is going to feel good and right for your body. I mean, there's other things I love to do, beforehand. Like pyramid pose. I tend to get really tight hamstrings, and again, my hips. So that really works out all of those areas.
Cool. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for Marathon Mania. That kind of wraps us up. Let's go through everyone one last time. Maybe talk about, again, who you are, what you do, your Twitter handle, where we can find you. Jamie, since we're on you.
Just muted myself. I am Jamie Walker. I am one of the founders of Fit Approach. You can find me at Fit Approach on Twitter or at Jamie Walker 19.
And Allie from Zola.
I'm Allie from Zola, coconut water acai juice. You can find us on Twitter at DrinkZola.
And Becky, who I completely forgot to introduce. Maybe you can talk Fit Approach stuff.
Yeah, hi, I'm Becky. I am the social media manager at Fit Approach. We have over 2,000 plus ambassadors worldwide who support our brand in Sweat Pink. You can find us at www.fitapproach.com, at Fit Approach on Twitter, Fit Approach LLC on Google+, of course, and this will be recorded later on our YouTube channel. So yeah, you can check it out there. Thanks, guys.
And Heather?
Once again, I'm Heather Mangieri. I'm here on behalf of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It's a great website, eatright.org. If anybody's looking for a dietitian, you can visit the website, put in your zip code, and you can find somebody near you. We also have a DPG, or a dietetic practice group, that is specializes in sports nutrition and wellness and cardiovascular nutrition, and that is you would be looking for a SCAN dietitian. And again, it's a website. You can put in your zip code. You can find a sports dietitian that's within so many miles of you. And if you're really, really looking on how to put a specific plan in place to use these products and to use different products and make sure you're well hydrated and you're getting enough carbohydrate for fuel and you're getting enough electrolytes, then I encourage you to look for a sports dietitian that can help you do that.
And John and Taylor from KonaKase.
Yeah, we're John and Taylor from KonaKase.com, Twitter handle @KonaKase. Is that upside down? No, we're good. Here's one of our red boxes dropping on doorsteps nationwide.
Can I add in? I forgot to add in the Twitter handle for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is @EatRight, and my personal Twitter handle is @NutritionCheck.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, I'm Jenna from Sweat Guru. You can follow us on Twitter at @TheSweatGuru or at facebook.com/SweatGuru. You can also follow us on our blog at sweatguru.com or on G+. So thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.